We place all the reasons for this confidence and trust on the Guru. That we put all the responsibility for it onto the Guru and make no efforts ourselves, it doesn't mean that at all. The reason why we entrust responsibility to the Guru is that we believe in the Guru. Because of that, we try and see whether we can practice the Dharma instructions that they give. And when we practice them, if we do not get a result from the practice, then there are reasons why we didn't get that, even though we believe the Guru. But even when many of us think that even when the Guru tells us how we should practice the Dharma, most of us don't practice that Dharma properly. And when something that doesn't match our expectations occurs, and we say that the Guru isn't good for anything, we don't believe in them. This is what happens, isn't it? I don't think that's right. The way we should understand having belief and trust in the Guru is that just as we believe and trust that Guru, when they give an instruction that is in accord with the Dharma, we need to practice that instruction ourselves. We need to see how much we can put it into practice in our lives. This is what's important. So basically, before we can believe in someone else, we first have to believe in ourselves. If we lack belief in ourselves and usually doubt ourselves, or if we lack confidence in ourselves, then we'll never find a belief in anyone else. We haven't gained belief in ourselves, and unless we find that, we won't find a belief in anyone else. So this is the situation occurs, so it is very important that we consider it. For example, with me, it seems like many people think, oh, he's the Karmapa. He's been given the title of Karmapa. So since he's got that title, he can't ever have any difficulties. The Karmapa never has any problems. Whatever he wants to do, he's able to accomplish it. He never has any, in his mind, he never has any problems or difficulties. So many people seem to feel this. So from one perspective, the Karmapa has been around for hundreds of years. And so when we say he's important, a great person, it's like the Karmapa becomes like a Superman, like some sort of a god. But with me, the way it really is, I'm just a mere human being. I'm a regular human. I'm a regular human who's been given a huge responsibility and a big title. So what's different about me from other people is that I've been given a big responsibility and a big title. Since I've been given a big responsibility and a big title, that responsibility and the title is something that other people think is extremely sacred and superhuman. But if I had to do anything superhuman, that would be really difficult. So that's how I feel about it. I have all the faults that everyone has. And in particular, I think that I have experienced many difficulties that other people don't have to face. There are many situations most people never face that I do. And so many people worry about me. And so in many different environments and social situations, I'm always the center of attention because of that. So many of the difficulties and problems I face are ones that most people never experience in their entire lives. So for this reason, for me, if I want to tell anyone about the difficulties I faced, so most people have like someone they can talk to about their problems. They can talk to their friends or their parents or the like. But I don't have anyone I could talk to. That's because there's no one else whose job is like mine. There's no one whose situation is like mine. So no matter who I tried to talk to, I couldn't tell them. So I don't know whether anyone else is going to believe this or not. Difficulties happen. The difficulties as big as Mount Meru. And when they occur, I don't have any superhuman qualities that the others think I have. In addition, in terms of being an individual, I'm supposed to be superhuman. And so that brings many difficulties and situations that are very hard. So what I think is that whether it'll turn out as other people say or other people hope, so whatever, whether it'll turn out as other people say or other people expect, then I need to do as much as I can. If someone were to say tomorrow, you aren't what we hoped you would be, you're some second-rate person, so then by pretending that person you've deceived us, then there wouldn't be any difference to me. The reason is because I have made mistakes. But I've also made a fair amount of efforts. Yet I understand that no matter how hard I have tried, it's difficult to live up to other people's expectations. For a long time, I really haven't practiced much Dharma very well, but I have studied quite a lot. And so from all that study, what I think is that no matter how difficult they may be, it doesn't matter how hard it is or how many problems there are, that doesn't make any difference. But having love for all sentient beings and doing something to benefit other beings in all my lifetimes is something I need to continue as best as I can. It's not like I think I have this fault, so there's no way I can do that. Since I'm lacking in some way, I can't do anything to benefit sentient beings. So it's similar for all of you. So as I said, some people think it's only me who has such great suffering. No one else has any suffering. Everyone has various sufferings, regardless of their size. We all experience suffering. We all have difficulties. We all have faults. Our qualities don't increase, but this isn't a reason to get discouraged. Instead, we need to continue to try. When you encounter one defeat, then we need to make twice that effort. When you encounter 10 defeats, then we need to make 20 times the effort. If we can do that, then one day we will become victorious over all directions and become able to bring benefit to ourselves and others. So I'd like to ask everyone to please keep that in mind. So I think that we will leave it here for this morning, and we will continue in the afternoon.
other chanting master and the honorable staff members to please give the prayers. And then while lunch break, we will be having 2 food trucks outside the building. You can buy foods from them, but please make sure that you don't bring any food and drinks inside the building. The rental policy is very strict. So they will be charging us for violating rental policy. So please make sure that you don't bring food and drink inside the building. You can buy food and go in the annex of the building. There's a cafeteria area. You can sit there and enjoy your lunch. And also we will be having 3 hours lunch break. You can go to the park vicinity. We have lots of fun restaurants and other eateries places. You can enjoy your lunch there. And then in the afternoon, we will be doing our meditation transmission at sharp 3 o'clock. So please need to be
First of all, I would like to wish everyone good afternoon. This afternoon, we were supposed to have the empowerment of Noble Avalokiteshvara, but in this situation, it is not so practical to do the empowerment. And so we will have to have the meditation transmission. So meditation transmission is when the master explains the meditation to the students. And the way to do the meditation. And go through the text, repeating the text after the master. So first the master explains the meditation, and then there's the call and repeat of the sadhana to practice it. And so that's how we do it. So yesterday I've already described the meditation. So I don't particularly have much of new to say. However, first, since we need to do the meditation and transmission, first the students need to make a mandala offering. So I'd like to ask the students to please make the mandala offering in order to receive the meditation transmission of the sadhana, all-pervading benefit of beings. So it's perfumed with scented water, strewn with flowers, graced with Mount Meru, the four lands, the sun and moon. I visualize to be a Buddha realm and offer so that all beings enjoy a perfectly pure realm. And then following this, so even if we can't do the whole sadhana by repeating it, we absolutely must do repeat the verse on going for refuge and rousing bodhicitta. So please repeat the verse on refuge and bodhicitta after me. In the Supreme Buddha, Dharma, and Assembly, I go for refuge until attaining enlightenment. Through the merit of this meditation, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit beings. In the Supreme Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly, I go for refuge until enlightenment. Through the merit of my practicing this meditation, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until attaining enlightenment. Through the merit of my practicing this meditation, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit beings. So now we have repeated the refuge and bodhicitta prayer 3 times. Now we will slowly recite the text of the sadhana. While we recite it, please do the visualization of the deity and the mantra recitation as I described them yesterday. In particular, today, think that there is an Avalokiteshvara above everyone's crown. Pray to him, and because of praying to him, you receive the blessings. At the end, the body of noble Avalokiteshvara dissolves into your body. So you visualize that it dissolves into you, but otherwise the visualizations are all the same. Then at the end we will do the 6-syllable mantra as a call and repeat. So please focus on the visualizations as I described them. And as you focus them like I described yesterday, please, while I recite the text, please focus on the visualization. On the crown, the head of myself and others, beings pervading space. On a white lotus and moon is Sri. From it arises noble, supreme Avalokita. He is brilliant white and irradiates the 5 lights. Handsome and smiling, he looks on with compassion. He has 4 arms. The first 2 are joined in prayer. The lower 2 hold a crystal mala and white lotus, adorned with ornaments of silks and jewels. He wears an upper robe of an antelope skin. Amitabha crowns his head. He sits with his 2 legs in the Vajra posture. His back rests against a stainless moon. He is the embodiment of all the sources of refuge. Perfect Buddha adorning your head, your body is unstained by faults, your body is white. A perfect Buddha adorns your head. You look on beings with eyes of compassion. Avalokita, we prostrate to you. Lord, unstained by faults, your body is white. A perfect Buddha crowns your head. You look upon beings with eyes of compassion. Avalokita, we prostrate to you. Lord, unstained by faults, your body is white. A perfect Buddha adorns your head. You look upon beings with compassionate eyes. We prostrate to you, Chenrezig. Due to supplicating one pointedly in that way, light rays stream forth from the body of the Noble One and purify impure karmic appearances and mistake in our consciousness. The outer world becomes the pure land of Sukhavati. The body, speech, and mind of the inhabitants within become the body, speech, and mind of Avalokita. Appearances, sounds, and awareness are inseparable from emptiness. Now following that, please repeat these words of the 6-syllable mantra of Noble Avalokiteshvara. Mani, Beme, Om, Om, Beme, Om. Please grant these students the study of the mantra. Please grant them all the austerities. May these Vidyaras receive the blessings of Avalokiteshvara in their beings. The physical appearance of myself and others is the body of the Noble One. Sounds are the melody of the 6 syllables. Thoughts are the expanse of great wisdom. By this merit may we swiftly accomplish Avalokiteshvara and establish every being without any exception in that state. So this completes bestowing the meditation transmission of Noble Avalokiteshvara. So basically, at this point I thought I should say a few things. So generally it's said that all the incarnations of the Karmapa are emanations of Noble Avalokiteshvara. This is not just the Karmapa in Tibet. His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and many other great lamas are emanations of Noble Avalokiteshvara. The reason is because Tibetans are disciples of Avalokiteshvara. So it's predicted that Avalokiteshvara would appear in the form of monastics or in the form of kings of Tibet. And so these are some of the... Bhakti himself had a pure vision of Dakinis of the 5 classes singing the Mani mantra to a melody. And they took it as an example and used it to spread the olden days when the Karmapas would give the black crown ceremony and put the crown on their heads. the custom was to recite the Mani mantra with a melody. So there's a strong connection between the activity of Avalokiteshvara and the histories of the Karmapas. So now we've gained this good opportunity, and I've been able to have this, been able to give this meditation transmission of this six-syllable mantra of Avalokiteshvara. I think this is a good fortune for me and myself, and my hope is that through this strong Dharma connection between us, we and all others may grow the seed of liberation and omniscience in our own beings. Likewise, in order to bring all sentient beings who are stricken by suffering swiftly to the unexcelled state of Buddhahood, may we all become diligent about the meditation practice of Noble Avalokiteshvara. My prayer is that we ourselves become great beings who are able to accomplish benefit for both ourselves and others. So now this is our teaching this year, and it seems like we have completed both our teaching and our empowerment for this year. And so, for the end, I should give some sort of a summary of this, and along with that, many people have heard or seen about many different things connected with my situation, whether through the news or through their community and word of mouth. So I thought it would be best if I gave a short explanation of them. The reason is because it's my responsibility, and so I'll try to give a short explanation. So now, this year, it's been 18 years that I've lived in India. And during these 18 years, I have never spent this long a period outside of India. It has been almost 2 years, or a year and a half. And the longest portion of this time I spent in the United States. And while I was staying in the United States, many people probably thought that I was probably enjoying myself and that I had some sort of a freedom. I think many people probably believe that. Difficult period of my life in the United States was probably the most difficult period of my life. No strength, I was very weak. And I had no strength, I was very weak. That I had never experienced before in this life. Similarly, there were external and internal pressures to deal with. So I feel like that, and I've never experienced situations that I had to deal with. So I feel like that, and I've never experienced such difficulties in my life before. And I think it'd be difficult for there ever to be such difficulties again. So I think that this time that I spent in the United States was probably the most difficult period of my life. But this happened primarily because of my past karma and temporary circumstances. So mainly I've pointed the finger at myself to see what has been inappropriate in the way I've done things, what mistakes I've made, or how I have not used my intelligence, or have lacked skills. This is something I have to tally up within myself. It's not about someone else saying they didn't do that right. My problems happen because of them. I see no basis for making any problems or for harboring any resentments against anyone else. The main thing is this happened because of my past karma and because of temporary circumstances. But regardless of my difficulties, there are a few things I have done. One of these is that, as reported in news, I have received citizenship in another country, a passport from Dominica. The news says that it is the Republic of Dominica, but that is a mistake. It is the Commonwealth of Dominica, not the Republic. So I did make some effort into doing this. Now, it wasn't only me working at it. It wasn't just me. Because of the situation I was in, there were many people who helped me on it. Now, the reason for doing this is that the Indian government is very kind in giving Tibetans who arrive in India a travel document so they can travel whether within India and also to other countries. This is a great kindness. Over the past 60 years, this has been extremely tough. It is very difficult. Even when we use this travel document we Tibetans have, it is very difficult. And they ask, what country's passport is this? It's not a passport. And they ask what country it's from. And likewise, when we go outside to other countries, so that's one problem. And likewise, when we go outside to other countries, there are nations where they won't accept it, and we cannot use it at all. Even when we can use it, there are various difficulties. Since that is how it is. Many high lamas of different Tibetan traditions get citizenship in various countries. So my advisors counseled me that it would be good to get a passport. And I also thought it would be good. And so I got the passport. Now, after I had got the passport, initially I had plans to return to India in the month of June. I'd had these plans already from last year. But during that time, in March, I got the new passport. So before I could return to India, I had to inform the Indian government that I had received a passport. From one angle, it would have been disrespectful to the Indian government to do otherwise. And so at the end of May, or in early June, I made some attempts to inform the Indian government that I had got a new passport. So I eventually was able to inform them of this. Similarly, I informed the Tibetan government and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Since I have already made the new passport of another country under Indian law, it's basically no way to hold the passports of two different countries. So for that reason, I had already made the new passport, though I hadn't used it. So in order to use it, I asked him to please use this. Please give me a visa. and allow me to return to India. And so I made that request. And I've been waiting for the Indian government to give me a visa. In any case, many people probably think that me spending so long abroad means that I don't want to return to India. Or when they hear about the situation with a passport, it is possible that people might have all sorts of suspicions and doubts. But as a matter of fact, the reason to make the passport was because I am in the same position as all the other lamas. In the future, I will also have to travel all over the world to spread Dharma activity. This is the situation, and because of it, I am in the process of requesting a visa so that I can be able to return to India soon. So I'm in the process of asking for a visa, and I thought I had explained this to everyone. Another thing to say is that I've spent a long time abroad this year. And I spent a lot of that time, as I look at it, has been wasted. This is because I can't. So I can't really see any specific thing that I've done. But the most important thing is that while staying abroad this year, I did recently have the opportunity to meet His Holiness Thaya Dorje. Now, I feel like doing this, I felt was something that really accomplished something. I think this could only happen abroad. There was no way it could have happened in India at all. So this year I was abroad, and he was also abroad, and so it happened kind of spontaneously. We were able to meet and have the accomplishment. So this is our initial meeting. And so as it said in the joint statement, the place we met was in the French countryside. That is where we met. He invited me there in October 10th and 11th. Over 2 days, we had the opportunity to meet twice. So the main aim of the meeting was to get to know each other personally, to meet personally, and to come to a personal understanding, to get to know each other well. This is because with me, for example, I have heard a lot about Shama Rinpoche from the time I was little, because there are many people around me who had grown up with Shama Rinpoche. So I'd heard a lot about Shama Rinpoche from them. But I'd never heard much about His Holiness Thaya Dorje. This is because there was no one around me who knew him well. So I've often wondered what his personality and character was like, what kind of a person he is. So through this opportunity, we had the chance to meet face to face, to be rather impolitic about it. For me, he is someone with good intentions. Someone who thinks about the overall needs of the teachings. So he and I are both Kampas. And so the character of Kampas is that we're very direct. And I really saw that, I felt that very strongly in him. So I was really happy. I found him easy to get to know, easy to talk to, and have conversations with. So when they heard about this meeting happened, many people, for one part, they were like amazed, or they didn't believe it. Another reaction was that many people thought that this was like the conclusion or the end of everything, like everything was decided. But this meeting is just beginning. It's not an ending or a conclusion at all. It's mainly for us to get to know each other and to share our thoughts and opinions. There's nothing at all that was immediately decided or brought to a conclusion. This is just a beginning, and there's still a long way to go. So in the future, whether there will be some good result that comes from this meeting, it does not depend only on the two of us. Maybe I think that it depends upon our entire Karmakaju community and upon all of our followers. For this reason, it is as our joint statement said, and I'd like to reiterate. So please, everyone, take a long view. Don't think about it in terms of a few months or a few years. Please think about how it'll be in a few decades or a few generations. Please think about it in that way. The reason is because this Karmakaju lineage has split into two. And that split should not continue from generation to generation. This is really something we have to keep in mind. Likewise, when we think about the Karmapa and his heart sons, we shouldn't have any conflicts over who's the real one and who the fake. I've also been thinking about this, and so then I arranged this meeting. If I had been thinking about my own personal profit, or the profit for one faction, it would have been better not to meet. There would have been fewer problems. But if we think about the general situation of the Karma Kamsen teachings, there was no way not to have this meeting. It was something we had to do. So for these reasons, I made the decision to do it on my own, and I requested the meeting. So a few years ago, His Holiness the Dalai Lama did give me some advice on a couple of occasions. He said it would be good for the two of us to meet. But at that time, my own way of thinking was a bit limited. And in addition, Kyabje Shama Rinpoche was also still alive. So I thought I would meet him first, and then eventually meet His Holiness Taya Dorje. So basically, this year I was abroad. So if I did not ask for a meeting and return to India, it would have been difficult to ever arrange a meeting again. So I took the opportunity and arranged the meeting. So I often think that the Karma Kamsang from glorious Dusum Khenpa up through the Gyalwang Rangrupa Dorje That is primarily the Karmapa and his heart sons, their disciples, have maintained and propagated the teachings through study, teaching, and practice. Likewise, with their wisdom, love, and power, they've ripened disciples. I think that this activity of ripening disciples is the essential heart of the Kagyu history, the majesty and the true weight of the Kagyu teachings. So it is important that we need to continue to preserve these fine deeds and activity, this fine example, and we need to uphold the lineage. If we do not preserve them and uphold the lineage, and instead spend most of our time being biased, factional, and partisan, then to continue to think that we are right and that what we're doing is good is in itself no good. The reason for this is that factionalism and partisanship are extremely dangerous. If we are partisan and factional, we won't see the faults on our own side or the qualities on the other. We will misunderstand all the qualities and faults and become unable to distinguish the good from the bad. We won't be able to recognize what is good and what is bad. For that reason, this is a situation where we absolutely must be careful. So this is why I asked His Holiness Taya Dorje for a meeting this year. But as I said before, this meeting is just a beginning. For this to be something that will go well in the future in a positive direction, we are only now taking the first steps. Whether this goes well or not does not depend upon only the two of us. It depends on all the followers and the whole community of the Karma Kamsang. So please, everyone, you absolutely must take as expansive a view of this as you can. Please consider the long term. If you think only about the very short term, so many people might think that there was no point for me to have this meeting this year. Likewise, some people might think that oct28 Dorje had this meeting and ended up losing. He was defeated. But victory and defeat is a short-term worldly way of speaking. The long-term future is the dating that the lineage of the Karma Kagyu will be left, so there's nothing that you can find. I don't think that losing some faith now or victory or defeat are all that important. So this is my reason for giving this explanation now. So that completes the explanation, so please keep it all in your mind. So now finally, this year, I was not actually able to come, and so I'd like to apologize for that again. But I think that at some point in the future, I definitely will be able to come to the city of Toronto. So I pray that we will meet each other again in the future, and that until we do, you all may be healthy, that all you do may go well, that everything will be auspicious in all directions, and that you all may be happy. Thank you very much.
112. I believe it's on the left side of this hall. Outside at 4:15. I think those who have registered, sponsors registered for the Mandala offering, please go to room number 112 at 4:15. If you have any doubts about the room number, you can contact Karmapa. He's there at the hall, so you may contact him and he will take you to the room. Thank you. So we will have the question and answer session. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we do not have any sound. Now, I think that the first question is, what do you think about the Me Too movement and its potential effect on Dharma communities? His Holiness now says, I think that the Me Too movement is a difficulty for everyone in the society. So it's a very great difficulty for everyone. And because of this, because of the difficulty that women face, the Me Too movement has become has spread widely. And this is also something that, a situation that is occurring in many different spiritual and religious communities, including the Buddhist community. And so the question is, how do we, when there are lamas who have acted inappropriately, how do we not lose faith in the lama? So generally we talk about that we have to have faith in there's a difference between the individual and the Dharma. With individuals, with people, there are a lot of different things. And to speak frankly, no matter what title you give a person, whether it's a lama or a rinpoche, a lot of people really get fixated on that name, on that high title. And so it's the moment they see that title, they think it's a superior individual. But it's not. It's just a acronym. It's just a name that we've given them, and for them to live up to the name that we've given them is actually really very difficult. And so since we have to differentiate between the individual's conduct and the between the Dharma and the individual's conduct, the individual might do various things, but the Dharma is true. And the reason why they do this is because of their own, that it's possible that this happened because of past karma. Some might have happened because they don't have enough practice. In any case, the individual may have flaws and faults, but the Dharma is what we have to faith in. So we have to distinguish between the Dharma and the individual. And the Dharma that we do is not Dharma that we do for some other person. Dharma is very personally. So we have to do our own Dharma practice. It's not saying that Lama didn't go, that person did, and then to stop doing Dharma for that reason is not right. It's like when we're sick, we have to go to a doctor. There are good doctors and there are bad Dharma doctors. But if we say that just because of a bad doctor that we don't stop going to hospitals and going to doctors and doing medical treatment. So I think that's something that we need to keep in mind. Now the second question reads, is is about my meeting with His Holiness Tai Dorje, and I've already spoken about, so I don't need to say any more about that. The third question here is in Chinese. So there's actually one person who gave two questions. So generally, the question is about secret mantra practice, and what it is when we're practicing the Dharma, there's there are many different traditions, the secret mantra and the Confucianism, and ultimately they're all the same. But when we practice them, how can we practice them all in union? That's the question. So the main thing is it has to come down to the main points. Whatever practice we're doing, if we practice it properly, first we have to have someone to guide us in it, and that's very important. So whether it's secret mantra practice, someone who has studied the entire process, from the preparations, the entire main practice, and the conclusion. And so no matter what other practice, it has to have someone who has the preparation, who knows the preparations, the main practice, and the conclusions. So someone who knows how should you think during the preparations, how do you think during the main practice, how do you think during the conclusion. In particular, something we emphasize in the Tibetan tradition is that there is the sequence of the three types of individuals. It's practicing in stages, and this seems to be a superior way of practicing. So the practice, it's important to understand the main points of the stages of practice to enlightenment. And once we understand those, when we do the secret mantra practice or Amitabha practice, if we can practice either of them with the understanding of the paths of the three types of individuals, then I think we're able to make this a meaningful human life. Now, the second question is that when we are doing our practice, and we get an understanding of the Dharma, but when there are situations when we aren't feeling healthy, and aren't able to practice, we sometimes lose faith in the Dharma. So generally, when we think about Dharma, what it is actually Dharma. Many people think that Dharma means that we pray to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, that they pacify all of our illnesses and difficulties. But actually, sometimes, when you look to see whether it's more beneficial to get sick and practice Dharma or to not get sick and practice the Dharma, it's not like that. We are able to practice if we get sick, and we should be able to practice if we can't. If we can do it both times. So when we are sick, then we should be able to practice. When we're not able to practice, then we still should be able to practice. So the reason why is that Dharma practice to be able to face up to the suffering of birth, age, sickness, and death, and to look up and see what the nature of birth, aging, sickness, and death is. Like with the Buddha, the Bhagavan Buddha, he first didn't know what the sufferings of birth, aging, and suffering and death were. As he was a prince, he didn't know them. Later, when he saw what the sufferings of birth, aging, and sickness and death were, then he was able to face them, and he realized that there was no way to them. And he understood the nature of birth, aging, sickness, and death, and the nature of samsara, and then left the royal palace and then he spent six years practicing austerities as taught in the texts. Now the fourth question is, Now, the fourth question also is actually many different questions. So the main thing when we talk about I and all sentient beings throughout space, the main thing is that we're first visualizing ourselves in our ordinary forms and other sentient beings as ordinary beings. And above the crown of our own head, above the crown of each of their heads, there's their own Avalokiteshvara. In the end, we supplicate them, and then from that Avalokiteshvara, there shines out light, and then we receive the blessings. And because of the power of that, we and all sentient beings become the form, the body of Noble Avalokiteshvara. And so that's basically it for that question. It's basically saying that it's imagining that there is an Avalokiteshvara in front of ourselves and all other sentient beings. We supplicate them, the light radiates from them, and then we all become Avalokiteshvara. The fifth question is, could you please talk about how the practice of emptiness relates to visualization and mantra practice? Now, to practice emptiness, whether we're doing the visualization of a deity or whether we're reciting a mantra, in general, within the secret mantra, whatever mantra or a deity we're doing, the main thing is that we shouldn't have the ordinary. We should not have any fixation on ordinary appearances. No matter what, when we're ordinary beings, whatever thing appears to us, then we immediately fixate upon it as being true and real and existent. But when we actually look at it, there's nothing that's true or real about it in the nature of how it actually is. So we examine it, we see that it is not truly existent and that it is illusory. So that's how we should understand this. It does not exist the way we think of it. There's nothing there that exists the way we think it does. That's the meaning of emptiness. So when we meditate on a deity and recite a deity, we're specifically meditating the deity, reciting the mantra, so the way we're thinking is that we're creating a new appearance, and we're creating a new appearance as we recite that, and then at that point, it's like we're creating a new world. What we're making it out of is, if we have the understanding, is that it comes out of emptiness. So first of all, we need to think about what the nature of all things in the matter of fact. And the nature of things is that there are many different phenomena that appear out of that thing. But first we have to think about that nature. And then out of that, the various different phenomena can appear. And so for that reason, when we're visualizing a deity, first we meditate on emptiness, and then then the visualization arises out of that. So that's something we need to think about. The sixth question is, if Chenrezig is on the top of our head, how can he be looking at us? I mean, if there's no other person around with a Chenrezig on his head, is he also in front of us? The sixth question is, I thought I'd explained this yesterday, actually. Chenrezig it's not like this, like when we're looking at that, it's like Chenrezig is looking at it. We shouldn't think that he's looking that way. So we should think that actually his face is looking right at you in the sky in front of you. So it's not above the crown of our head, but he's just perhaps like a little bit further into the space in front of us, so above us in the front of space. There's that Chenrezig, and he's looking at us with his compassionate eyes, and that's what we have to think. And so that's how we're seeing it, like for us. And we see it's for the same, that it's the same, that each of them have their own Chenrezig in front of them. It's similar. So that's how we have to think about it. And the seventh question is, the Chenrezig is such an important deity, but I lean more towards Tara as a practice in self-visualization. I have a hard enough time trying to find time to do Tara practice along with daily aspiration prayers and Dzogchen meditation. Yet there are so many more deities I have empowerments for, such as Chenrezig, that I could or should be practicing. I'm confused as to what I should concentrate on. So in general, Chenrezig is very important. But Chenrezig being important doesn't mean that other deities don't become important. So and it's like, and because Chenrezig is important, then also in particular Tara is also important, because there's a connection between Tara and Chenrezig, as Tara is said to come from the tear from the eyes of Chenrezig. The end of it, anyways, the way that we need to do the practice, the main thing is that whatever we feel the most faith for is what we should be practicing. Or if you can ask a lama who you have a question to identify which is the best one to do, and then you practice that one. I think that's the way to do it. So the next question is, what can we do to help you with your physical difficulties and mental stress? So this is basically saying, how can you help me? So the way you can help me is, so from the time I was little, when I was recognized as Karmapa at the age of 7, I've been someone who, from that very time, from the little age, I've been educated in being someone who helps other sentient beings, and because of that, so basically, I do as much as I can to help other people, but for other people to tell people what they should do to help me, I really can't say what you should do to help me. But for you to care about me so much is really quite nice. So thank you very much. Now the 9th question is, it reads, when we practice Chenrezig's all-pervading benefit of beings, instead of transferring merit as stated in the booklet, by this merit may we quickly accomplish Avalokiteshvara and establish every being without exception in that state. Can we use our own version, like to all be reborn in the land of ultimate bliss? No, I think that this might be a question of just a different translation. My English is not so good, so I'm not sure which is a good translation. How it is difficult to say. For the time being, you just have to look at it to see whether the translation is good or not. The 10th question is, what is my health? It's something I've already spoken about, so I don't need to speak about it. The 11th is, will you still be attending the Spiritual Leader Conference in India? So this 11th question it's like, as I've been saying before, it is something I would like to do, and I would continue to hope to be able to attend. If all the causes and conditions come together, then I think I should be able to go. The 12th is in Chinese. There's quite a few of these questions here, and I don't think I can answer all of them. The first one is about the question of the white lotus flower being the symbol of the resolve for emancipation. So why are there 8? Hey, what does it have 8 petals? Now there are notices that sometimes have 4 petals or 8 petals, and so the particular reason for the number of 8 in India was considered a very auspicious name. So from one perspective, it's probably that. From another perspective, it could be like being liberated from, you can also think of it as symbolizing liberation from the 8 worldly concerns. For example, with Chenrezig having 4 arms, it says like it symbolizes the four immeasurables. And it's also because having 2 hands, then 2 hands is just not enough to bring benefit to all sentient beings. Sometimes you need 4 or 1,000 of arms. But the main thing is that it's not a question of how many arms. It's a question of showing that he has makes great efforts to bring benefit to sentient beings. And the question is about the crystal malas and the holding and the stem of the white lotus, what these represent, and I don't remember that particularly right now. But there are questions, or there is discussion about what everything symbolizes, but I can't respond to them specifically right now. The 13th question, is there anything we can do to help you, dearest Karmapa? So this is the same as the earlier question, so there's nothing else to say. The 14th is, What is the connection between light and our mind, please? Generally, when we talk about like shining and gathering lights, so light rays in general, like something that they show hope or they show excitement. And so that when we do all this shining and the gathering of light, it's like when we're lighting a lamp in darkness is like a symbol of excitement and of hope. And so I think this is like a symbol of that. The 14th. So the next question is, please give us the transmission of Mahamudra aspiration, and I can't do that right now. So later, if I have the opportunity, I will give it to you. The 16th question is, the question reads, is awareness different from consciousness? Could you say that awareness illuminates each of these consciousnesses? I'm going to skip this one, go to the 7th one. The 17th question is, what is my intention for visualization, or my purpose? What is my intention on visualization? Reads the question. I don't quite understand the question. So the intention, the main thing about visualization is using the imagination of the mind. It is like increasing our mental capacity. It's like it increases our mind, the way we think. It's not just merely thinking, it's like also having a picture. It's like a really powerful, having a really powerful mind. It's a very creative, just to make our mind more creative. So I think, so it's not just like merely making an aspiration, it's being creative and imaginative. So in order to do that, we have to have a lot of activity and power and capacity in our mind. And so I think it is enabled to increase that capacity. So I think there are many different reasons, but I think that for this point is right now. Now the 18th is, this 18th reads, what is my responsibility with regard to my intention? Now the 19th is, what is my transmission in realization? I don't understand that. When the 20th is, how did the 6th letter Om Mani Padme Hum come into existence or flourish in Tibet? Questioned by Genyen Chudren. So Om Mani Padme Hum, if we think about it from this way, probably already made it to Tibet by the 7th and 8th century, as soon as the Dharma spread to Tibet. From the time of the Dharma Emperor Sonsen Gampo, it said that the Dharma came to Tibet, so probably from that time. So probably the 7th or 8th time, that's probably when it began. But I can't, it's difficult for me to say exactly when it arrived. The 21st question is in Chinese. Generally, every day, it is difficult to talk about the situation of our mind should be every single day. But basically, when you think about the different stages or phases of our mind, sometimes they're joyful or sensitive. The main thing is that we need to never let our diligence get too lax. So when our mind is happy, we feel good when we practice, and then when we feel bad, we don't. It's not like that. We shouldn't be like that. Instead, we should always be able to face up to the situation we're in and be able to maintain our diligence. And it's important that we be able to face the situation and be able to continue. When some minor thing disappoints us, then we shouldn't let it stop us from practicing. We need to be able to continue practicing as best. Even if at first we aren't going to be able to continue being diligent, gradually we'll be able to. If we don't practice, then gradually our mind will get a little bit impaired. And our mind will get a little bit too hard, and we'll be unable to get too wild, and we won't be able to do anything about it. The 22nd question is also in Chinese. How can we have excitement for our practice every day? This is when we are practicing the Chenrezig practice. When the light strikes all sentient beings, we imagine that it removes all the suffering of sentient beings. So how is it that this works with karma? So isn't this a problem that you can't receive a result for an action you haven't done yourself? So the main thing here is that we're doing this with the thought of compassion. To actually accomplish it is quite difficult. To immediately, radiate a light and eliminate all the suffering of sentient beings is not something that happens in the case of fact, but this is when we're developing compassion with the way we think. It's in order to train our mind. In order to remove the suffering of all sentient beings, to increase the compassion to remove the suffering of all sentient beings. And with that compassion, we think we've removed the sufferings of all sentient beings, and so we have to develop the excitement or the encouragement to do that. Even if we can't do anything in person, we have the feeling or the thought of doing something to dispel the suffering of all sentient beings. And when that thought comes up, then that thought of compassion, it helps us to increase our thoughts, our compassionate thoughts. But it's difficult for this to actually happen in terms of the actual things. Of course, with the great bodhisattvas, the bodhisattvas are able to do those things that are difficult to do in actuality, or that shouldn't work in practice. But the great bodhisattvas have the ability to do this because there's no limit to the aspirations that the bodhisattvas made in the past. So there's no limit for what they can or cannot do, and so they do. And they can even do things that they shouldn't be able to possibly do. Now the 23rd question reads, among the four thoughts that turn the mind, there is the precious human birth, that's difficult to get, and the death and impermanence, the karmic cause and effect, and the defects of samsara, something that we just take an understanding of, but I don't actually, can't actually get a feeling or get an experience of them. So how? So when we understand them, when we just get an understanding of that, is that kind of deceiving ourselves? But actually, when I think about it, the precious human body that's difficult to achieve is something that we can actually see in the way things are. Because if we can, when we talk about the human body, it's a precious human body where we have all the facilities and we were able to meet a spiritual master, and that is really something that's difficult to find. When we have a really good, we almost always have these opportunities to give up misdeeds and benefit others, but often we don't recognize those. And so but sometimes because of the condition of someone else, we have to see that opportunity to give up misdeeds. And sometimes when we compare ourselves to other beings, like comparing them to animals, we can then really think about see how difficult it is to achieve the human body, because we have to think about it in many different ways. Then finally, we can really see how sacred and how special and important this human body is. Likewise, when we talk about the karma cause and effect being unfailing, then generally when we see this, that everyone's getting closer and closer to each other in this world. And so the karma cause and effect is something that is a single individual does, and because of this, then it can actually affect the entire world. And because of this, we can see that the karma cause and effect is something we can actually think about. What is difficult to understand is the suffering of samsara. And the reason we have to think on a deeper level for that. The suffering of samsara is, if we actually know how to think, well, it's something that we can actually experience. It's not something where we have to get to a really high level, like the view of emptiness, where you need a high level. It's not something like that. It's something that within this life we can experience. And it's something that we can see within every day of our life. But I don't have a whole lot of time to speak about that now. The 24th question is, it's also in Chinese. There's a question about the environment. There's a lot of questions about the environment here. But here in this society, there's a lot of desire for external things. And we use a lot of resources, and we're using more and more resources. So because of the we have to think about what we not from what we need. We have to be able to distinguish what we not from what we need. What we want, there's always more about, but there's what we need is actually not all that much. It's very little bit. But we see everything when we think about it, because we see advertisements, we see it in the news, in the newspapers, we see advertisements everywhere. They say that you absolutely have to have this. If you don't have this, you're only half of a person. That we see all these different advertisements, and all of these make us think that there's no way we can do without something. But all of these are just deceiving us, and so we should not let ourselves be deceived. We need to think about ourselves and to see, is this something that I really need or not? So thinking about this is really important. So basically, the most important thing is a few desires and be content. Now the last question is also in Chinese. This is these days, there are many students who come from foreign countries who have difficulties in their minds. Because the feeling of being alone, or when they study, a feeling like there's a lot of pressure, or really having doubt as to what the real the essential meaning of their lives is. So for people who are studying, this is a question when you're doing this. Many, because they're young, they don't have a lot of experience in their lives. But I think if you put more interest into things, whether it's into Buddhism or if you pick a few good books and read them, and then think about them, so you can find a new way to think and getting a new understanding. So to look at it from a different perspective, not from just a single perspective, but to look at the question from many different perspectives. And if you have a lot of interest in that, I think that it'll be very helpful. So generally we think that in this environment, the way we think of it becomes a little bit narrow and a bit too limited. And because of that, when we have difficulties, we have to think of it, we're unable to think about it from many different perspectives when we encounter difficulties. So for this way, we need to think about different cultures, different religions. You just can't, knowing anything at all is not something, but mainly things that you examine and discern and look at those things, and that's fine. So I think that is it for a question and answer for today. So it's difficult. It was difficult to give answers to all the questions, but I've tried to answer a few of them. So thank you all to everyone.
Buddha.